Murphy's Law.
The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Nisa.
And we're back here in the house. And I'll tell you,
our 100th show.
It's coming up next Monday.
That's right. Get ready. We're going to have a big party.
100th show of the year.
Lobster tails and filet meat. No, I'm only kidding.
100th show of the year.
I was going to cancel my trip. I was going to lobster tail. I'll be here.
But I find it very interesting that this week, this past week, the Worcester Housing Authority has rendered its verdict, and the people of the Worcester Housing Authority aren't happy. If you want to live in public housing in the city of Worcester, you must either work or go to school. If not, get out. I think that's a good thing.
I do too.
I don't know about you, Chip, but I mean, you know, I guess the gravy train is finally running out.
You know, I mean, I think that's well, actually, many years ago when I was in college, and in a course I wrote a paper. They asked what your solution to welfare was, and mine was basically a Milton Friedman concept of negative income tax, and have everybody who was capable, who was not either psychologically or physically incapable of working, to mandate that they have a job or go to school, and supplement their income with a negative income tax. But you didn't get any benefits unless you worked. If you were capable of working, I do not see any reason why someone is capable of working and they're not required to work. But with that caveat, I am going to add, though, we have to change the laws, because the laws have been expanded, the definitions. There are so many people out there that are supposedly psychologically not capable of working. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, does being a politician qualify you as not?
Yeah, I'm just going to give you one quick example, because I know Nisa's got a lot. She's got some stuff to say on this, but I'm going to tell you, and I don't know if you were there. I was having lunch one day, and this young girl, she couldn't have been more than 19 or 20, came in to the restaurant with a little Pekingese in her arms, and she sat down at the table with her husband or boyfriend.
So you said she had a baby?
Little Pekingese, a dog.
Okay.
One of them little tiny dogs, right? And, you know, the waitress came over and said, "I'm sorry, you can't bring an animal into a restaurant." She said, "This is a service animal." And when she said that, I went, "A service animal?" You know, it's not a blind, a deaf dog, or, you know, they have, and they're normally, and I went, and it didn't have any identification. And the waitress said, "A service animal? What kind of?" She said, "Well, this is my stress dog." And she was already on welfare because she was stressed at 19. You know, and she couldn't, she had to have a dog, and she couldn't work anymore. So at 19, she's got a bright and long future on the welfare rolls. So with that, we have to change some of the ways that we evaluate these people in addition to that. And with that, go ahead, Nisa.
I have to say, I definitely agree. Overall, mental illness in this country has affected people in many ways. However, there are people who really take advantage of that. So with that said, I think that you're right. People should come out there and better evaluate the doctors, therapists, clinicians. It's something that really has people taking advantage of the system. These people are taking and not giving back. So.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think there is a place for welfare. I mean, it's not a handout. It's a helping hand.
Right.
And there have been many people who have been forced into the welfare system, and then educated themselves and became productive citizens and working.
Correct.
I know, as a matter of fact, I know
I'm one of them.
Yeah. Well,
I would
there
have to
we
say
go.
I'm one of
And
them.
I also know a few people that that attended college with me that were on welfare because of whatever financial issues they had, and they were educating themselves, and they ultimately got jobs, had very productive lives, and that's the key. The key is that, listen, the welfare system is not a job, and to some of these people, we have second, third, fourth generation families on welfare, and it's like, it's like you're when you grow up in the welfare system, you're like a trainee. You figure out how to get the next generation on welfare, and that's just wrong.
I just have to say, growing up in the projects, we were on welfare at some point. Later on, welfare and food stamps. But my parents showed me that there's another way out. Everyone needs to contribute some way, somehow. And that's what they showed me. And unfortunately, I found myself in a situation where right now I'm only 24, and people ask me, how is your child 8? I'm like, because I had her at a really young age. Had my child in high school. I had a rough time, and ended up in the projects myself on welfare and food stamps. But there was a point where I said, I want to get from point A to point B, and to do so, I have to know that there's a time to have children, and the time wasn't adequate. So I stopped having kids. I went back to school, and I did what I had to do for myself and to contribute to society. But the number one reason, of course, here, it was for me.
Well, you're right. And I think almost every year, right here at Bristol Community College, if you read the story of the class valedictorian, most of the time it's some person that's a little older than the average student who came back as maybe a single parent, as a mother or a father, and then came out and now graduated with a 4.0 average and continuing on, because, everybody has difficulties in their life. But, kudos to you, and kudos to all people who do that. I mean, welfare should be a system, except for those people who are physically or psychologically unable ever to work again. It should be a transient system, a system to allow somebody a gap between their difficult times and for them to become productive citizens.
Right.
And you're an example. You're in college now. You're moving on. You're on your way to a productive life. But that's I mean, you deserve it, and everybody who does that. This is what this system was supposed to be.
Right.
And what a lot of people forget is projects weren't built for welfare people initially. Projects were built for veterans and low-income people initially. And if you look back at the original occupants of Maple Gardens and Sunset Hill, most of them were veterans who got out, and then civil servants, and they lived there until they transferred their lives over to buying a home and stuff. So somewhere along the line, this is what happens in politics. They convolute everything. They twist something that had a very good idea at the start into something that now has just become a total disaster. And I applaud Worcester, but I do not think that's going to happen in Fall River, because the director of the Housing Authority, and I will remind everybody here, was the only one in our state delegation, and his former aide, who was a sitting city councilor at the time, were the only city councilor and the only state rep that was against the demolition of Watuppa Heights. Our housing director loves low-income housing. And I know he will fight tooth and nail for it, because he is if he had his way, we'd have all the low-income people in the state living here.
Is it because he cares about the people?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say, but of course his contract does pay him more if he gets more occupants. But I've got to call, Dave, Sullivan was, he worked at on Hanover Street. What's the name of that place? I forgot already. The place with.
Oh, not family service.
No. Well, whatever it is.
Oh, Corrigan.
Yeah, Corrigan. He's. I guess he's got a degree. I guess it's in sociology or something. He's been dealing with people with psychological issues You know, that was his career before he became a state rep and when he was a city councilor. And he's always been an advocate, and I see nothing wrong with advocating for people with issues that render them, to a position where they can't work. But the problem is that his mindset is so fixated on the group that he works, he doesn't see the overall picture that many of these people in this system are just draining the system, and they should be working.
I have to say that they're at a comfort zone where they're afraid of moving on. And I've come across these people. I've had a lot of jobs throughout the years, being in and out of college. So I've been a server, I've been doing assisted living. I can happily say that I've never had an issue of not having a job for more than 2 weeks. I do come across people who say, hey, can you pick up a shift for me? I can't do any more hours or they're going to take away my benefits. So I'm thinking maybe Social Security benefits. No, these are people my age who, they can't do themselves. They say they don't want to do a certain amount of hours because then they're going to take away some of their food stamps or et cetera. That's a personal issue, but I do have to say that I've been volunteering for a nonprofit financial company in Providence. And what I do there, I've actually helped people complete their applications for food stamps, for public housing, because what I do there is help people find a leverage so that they can move on to something else. And that's what we do in the financial company that I volunteer for. We help them get, know how to budget their whatever benefits they're receiving. We teach them how to find out other alternatives for housing if they can't qualify for public housing. But what I'm trying to say here is that the people that go there to have financial advising, what they do is they're looking to better themselves somehow financially. So if you are in the need of having public assistance, by all means, you have the right as a citizen, as a resident of the United States of America, to have the assistance. Yeah. But there's a difference between abusing the system, all right, and actually needing it to move on.
No, you're right, Deezer. And the fact is that, look, let's be serious. One of the major problems we have is there are so many agencies out there to help people that have issues. But the reality is that we've created a system where most of these people, they would be worse off if they got a job.
Right.
And they don't want to. I mean, I have to deal with people on fixed incomes who've worked their whole life and have been retired and have been, they even tell me, I'm almost upset that I lived this long because my pension has dwindled to the point where I can't afford prescription drugs. They've worked their entire lives and they've got health care, and their health care continues to shift the cost on them. And then you got these people on public assistance, and they're paying nothing for their prescriptions, and they, and if they got a job, because most of them don't have an education, it's going to be a fairly entry-level, low-wage job. They would actually be worse off working in a minimum wage job than they would on public assistance, because they get their health care for free, they get their prescriptions for free, they get food, help with their food, help with everything. And in reality, they look at the picture and they go, I've heard a few of them say, I'm not going to go out and work for minimum wage. I'm not going to go wrap hamburgers at McDonald's. I'm doing better on welfare than I would if I was out there working. Watching Jerry Springer at daytime. Yeah, they can sit down and watch Jerry Springer all day. So that's an issue. That's one of the problems too. It's a very, very difficult problem. But the first step is to do what Worcester basically did and say, listen, this is no longer welfare. This is workfare.
And it's about time that we do that. But this is the problem. And I was having a conversation prior to the show today with a professor here at Bristol Community College. And this is entrenched in Fall River. This is entrenched. This entitlement is there. Our children are raised in a school system which says you can't do better than you're already doing. Yes. Our parents are like, oh no, don't worry about it. The state will take care of you. Look at how we're doing it. We got Section 8, we got food stamps. We're fine. We've got a new car. We've got what we need. And because we create this sense of entitlement, we're a city destined to fail. You know, and everyone's talking about let's change the motto from we'll try. I think we should just change it to we failed, and that's it, because we have. The Fall River school system has not met any targets. We have that. That is factual. The reports are out there. Yet we want to applaud failure. And we do it every day in Fall River. And when you lead by example, and that example is failure, guess what? Everyone's going to say, hey, he got a raise. He got a $100,000 a year job. He's making $100,000 a year, and he's failing. Okay? Let's look at the water department. We got a CSO project. That was ordered by the court. But we didn't get the grant because somebody went on vacation and failed to file the paperwork on time. But we gave them a department head position, or we gave them a raise, or whatever the case may be. We've buckled up, and we've said, hey, we failed, no big deal. Here's a raise of $100,000. You know, we look at our fire department. We're all complaining that we don't have fire engines. We don't have equipment that can work. We're going to bond it all right now. And then in my investigation, and I'm waiting for the specs from the fire chief, I did request that from him, there's a question of whether or not the engines they want to bond for will even be capable of being used in the city. And when we get those specs, our resident expert on fire apparatus will review it and say exactly what's possible or not possible with those particular engines. They're KMEs, I think is the name of it, Chip.
Yeah, that's, one of the companies.
And you know, now we're questioning, are they quints, which is a type of equipment? You know, what are they, that the wheelbase doesn't fit the city streets? Or, you know, so all of these questions out there, and then you have the fact that, okay, we'll buy 6 engines today. We'll get them in a year or 2 years, and then when they come up and need to be replaced, we're going to be in the same boat we're in now. Why do we have to constantly set ourselves up for failure?
It's like we encourage it. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, when you look at the way we do things in this city, it's almost like, listen, we know. I mean, it was already 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, that I sat in Boston with Sean Kadim when he was the city administrator, when he said we had a $500 million debt with our bonds and all our commitments, and that's $500 million. And we look at these things, and then like the housing authority, to get back to the housing authority, it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that when you reduce low-income housing, it helps your economic development. Yet this city will fight tooth and nail to get more low-income housing, when in fact it's a proven fact. I mean, it's not rocket science. If you bring people in who don't have a lot of money,
you know,
they're not going to spend money, and the economic development's not going to be there.
Chip, the issues happening here in Fall River, I'm from Providence, you all know that, and I'm still getting very familiar with what's going on here. I am not a political analyst or any type of government official, but you would think that certain things like we had mentioned now, the fire truck situation, replacing them all at once rather than doing it gradually, the building more housing. We have proof here that certain tactics don't work. You know, and like I said, I'm not a political analyst. I'm just a student. But these things are common sense, and it's hard for me to comprehend that people who have experience in politics that are running this city don't get that. So
that's because we govern by crisis. Everything's got to be a crisis. You have to do this now, because if you don't do this right now, the city is going to fall apart. The 9th ring of hell is going to come up and swallow up the city, and there'll be nothing for anybody.
Right.
The mayor will have to lay off all the firefighters, all the police officers, all the school teachers. There'll be nothing. The city will go into anarchy. That's what they like. That's how they govern. And then when you get comments from city councilors who turn around and say, we're given no choice. We have to vote for it. We've got no choice. You know what? You always have a choice.
that's right.
The choice is either yes or no, right or wrong. Those are your choices.
These are common sense things that.
Yeah, and
But you see, the three of us, we use something that the city of Fall River doesn't understand. It's called our brains. It's called common sense. We have them. And that goes miles over what this city offers anyone or any person. And that's the problem. And then we're called the negative ones for it.
Well, we have to, plus we also have memories, and if we don't remember accurately what happened, we'll check.
Exactly.
I just got a message in saying, did you hear Dan Rigo taking credit for the recall? So now you've got a politician who's in desperate, I'm assuming that's the Dan Rigo they're talking about. I'm checking as we speak. Oh, WSAR. So apparently he's taking credit for the recall, which he had absolutely nothing to do with, except maybe signing the petition. I can't even remember if he signed it, but
he did sign it. He signed it at the Liberal Club on the back of one of the recallers, if you remember correctly.
yeah, I vaguely remembered it, but we had a lot of people sign it, and but the fact is now he's taking credit for it, and
But you know, Chip, this is what gets me. The recall is history. That election happened already. Yeah. It's a point of history. Don't use it to build up your political campaign. Don't use it for credit. It's over. That's it. Let's move on.
No, you're right. It was a great victory. It was a great exercise in the people rising up and taking back their government. But the problem is they've already, they create revisionist history. What happens is now you've got people saying let's face it, you had Sutter's campaign manager saying she did it. Now Danny Rigo did it. And the fact is there were a lot of people standing out there in the parking lots getting signatures, and a lot of people collating data, and we know who they are because we spent 7 days a week on the recall. Not, we spent, we were there every day. We were collecting the petitions, giving to the people that were collating the data. You were making the copies. We were doing all these things. And we know who was involved and who did work. And I said there were a lot of people that did a lot of work in a lot of areas. But Dan Rigo was not one of them.
Chip, I think...
and to use it for political gain, I have to say this, is appalling. Yeah. It's appalling.
I mean, it's not what you've done in the past. It's what you can do today. I mean, give you an example. I helped my child last week with her homework, and I showered her and I did her hair. Guess what? That has to be done today as well. We have new issues coming and new things happening every day. I don't understand why someone would keep talking about something that they had done in the past rather than what you can do to address the issues that are going on today.
Well, I'll tell you what they do, Nisa, because politicians love to distort, manipulate, tell half-truths, take credit for what they didn't do, throw everybody else under the bus when it's an election time. And we had one politician actually say, and they've said it before, sometimes you just have to vote for things. Because that's the way it is. And no, it's not. The only thing in life that you don't have a choice about is death. Mm-hmm. We are all going to die. The rest of the time in your life, you can make a choice. You can choose to stand and face an issue and take the arrows in the forehead, or you can turn tail and run and take them in your gluteus. So, don't give me that crap that you had to do it, or the strong mayor thing, or the age thing. Listen, CJ wrote the Weekend Flush, and I know he talked about age. And listen, let me tell you something. Alexander the Great conquered the world when he was in his 20s. And Grandma Moses became a famous painter and didn't start painting till she was 70 or 80. So age is an irrelevant factor. It's, do you have the ability to do the job? Can you be a leader? Can you perform in the best interests of the people? It's all political BS. Because politicians, I want these politicians who are incumbents to run on their record. Sam Sutter does not. All he talks about is Jazel Correa. You know why? Because he doesn't have a record. Because if he had a really good record, Sam Sutter would be saying, I don't care what Jazel said. I've reorganized departments. I've saved money. I kept taxes down. I did this. I did that. He would be the great I am. I am a great mayor. But he's running on, he won't be a good mayor. Well, you got a record, buddy, and it's not very good. And the same thing to the incumbent city councilors. I don't want to hear it. Every time somebody questions you about one of your votes, and you say, oh, there's nothing I can do. We got a strong mayor. You know, oh, I have to do that. Sometimes you have to vote for things. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can be the lone vote. You know, your parliamentary procedure provides for a minority report. You can be a minority of one. And I don't care if 5,000 people vote one way. If you disagree and you have the courage of your convictions, you'll stand up and say, no, I'm opposed. And they'll win, but that's irrelevant. Because that's what this country's about, the majority rules. But if the majority's wrong, you can then say, when they take it in the face, well, I guess I was right and you were wrong, clowns. But guess what? When you don't have the courage, when your answer when things go wrong is, oh, I felt I had to do it. Oh, they said we were going to get fined. Oh, sometimes we have to do things. You're a coward. That's what you are. You're a coward.
Chip, do you remember when the majority thought the world was flat?
That's right. There you go. That's right.
You mean it's not?
Only in Fall River.
Only in Fall River. But you know, that's very true. And that actually did happen. A year ago, at the budget hearings, Dan Rigo was the sole no vote. The sole no vote on a budget that was an absolute fabrication. And it's been proven. Now they're saying, oh no, that budget was sound. And you know, all of a sudden the budget's sound. We're moving money around all over the place, but the budget's sound. I actually confronted some city councilors on Friday with the fact that money was found in the water department. And it's substantial. It's substantial. And it's sitting in accounts unused, some of it for as long as 7 years, maybe longer. And the question is, why hasn't that money been redirected or paid back into the debt service because that was money that was bonded? Nobody has an answer. Oh, well, I think the money should go to reduce the CSO costs. And I think, you know, it's all nice to think and wonder, how about doing something? Do we know how to do anything? Does Fall River really have an idea of what people are asking and what's happening? I mean, you know, Nisa, I know you're still new, but you know, we're trying to get you up to speed as fast as possible. But again,
and I've been trying to do my research.
Oh, I
too.
know you have. And
Okay.
believe me, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I think that you're going to become a major neutral advocate for what has to be done. Because again, you have, looking at our Brady Bunch type forum here, you've got two opposing individuals at the top of the box, and we're not always opposed, but on a lot of things we don't agree. And you kind of step in, and that's a wonderful thing. But we need to make sure that Fall River does the same thing, where they become the Nisa Vignes in the community, and they take the neutral, realistic approach to what's happening and use a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of common sense.
Well, I gotta weigh in on that assessment. Okay, stay angry, but remember, neutrality is good to keep a perspective. But if you're involved in an issue, you have to pick a side.
That's right.
Nisa is not from Fall River, so she doesn't have to pick a political side, so she can be on neutral thing. But I don't expect her to pick a side on Providence things.
I don't know a lot just yet, but I'm doing my research. And last time I checked, the world is round. Am I right?
We're not sure of that. The jury's still out.